Ready na ba?
Sige. Teka. Nag-record ka na, Jace?
Apo, kuya.
Good evening, class. We're going to report about Mandala Airlines Flight 0921 aircraft accident. So, for the details of the accident, Mandala Airlines Flight 0921, a Boeing 737-200 was to depart Medan Polonia Airport, MES, for Jakarta Soekarno Hatta International Airport. The previous flight was from Jakarta and arrived at Medan uneventfully. The same crew had a flight scheduled on the same day and returned to Jakarta at 9:52 local time MDL 091, asked for pushback and startup clearance. After receiving the approval of air traffic controller, the crew began starting the engines at 9:56. The controller cleared MDL 091 to taxi into position on runway 23 via taxiway Alpha. 6 minutes later, MDL 091 received clearance for takeoff with additional clearance from ATC to turn left heading 120 degrees and maintain 1,500 feet. The airplane failed to become airborne and overrun runway 23, impacting several approach lights. It traveled through a grass area and over a river and impacted several buildings and vehicles before coming to a rest on the road. Past crash fire destroyed much of the airplane. 100 passenger and crew members on board the plane died. 15 passengers were seriously injured and 2 passengers, a mother and child, survived without any injuries. 49 persons on ground were killed and 26 people were seriously injured. Medan Polonia has a single 2,900 times 45 meters asphalt runway. Next reporter.
So, for the final report for the accident, according to the findings of the investigators and approved by the chairman, is that both pilots had valid licenses and are proficient. The aircraft also had a valid certificate of registration and certificate of airworthiness. It is also assessed the wreckage and the FDR confirmed that the engine performance was not the cause of the failure to lift off. The result of engines which are torn down shows that the engines operated at normal performance. Therefore, engines were not a contributing factor to the accident. The load manifest data shows that aircraft weight in the center of gravity position are sufficient to provide stability. The aircraft weight and balance is also not a contributing factor to the accident. The aircraft performance derived from the FDR data concluded that the aircraft attempted to take off with improper takeoff configuration, i.e., flaps and slats retracted. The aircraft briefly lifted off during the takeoff roll, stalled, then settled back onto the ground before overrunning the end of the runway. The aircraft's takeoff warning horn should have been sounding continuously while the airplane was briefly airborne. Neither sound was heard on the CAM channel of the CVR, even after extensive filtering of the hum and noise. Several crew words, cockpit switch activations, engine noise, and cabin chime sounds heard on the CAM channel of the CVR are typically at a volume level much lower than the standard takeoff warning horn. The reason that the takeoff warning horn was not heard on the CVR could not be conclusively determined. It is possible that the takeoff configuration warning horn was not sounding. It is also possible that takeoff configuration horn was sounding but was not being recorded by the malfunctioning CAM channel. Since the CVR recording is of poor quality, the investigator team has no evidence if the checklist procedures have been performed properly. Should the crew perform the checklist procedure properly, they would have identified the flap's zero position regardless of the failure of the takeoff configuration. Oral warning. The inadequate execution of the AAP, lack of coordination and practices among the rescue teams, eventually can lead to a smaller number of survivors. Next reporter.
So for the safety recommendation, we have 4.1 recommendation to PT Mandala Airlines. The National Transportation Safety Committee recommends that PT Mandala Airlines ensure that the flight crew correctly perform the checklist execution, in particular ensuring confirmation and verification. So for 4.2, we also have a recommendation for PT Mandala Airlines. The National Transport Safety Committee recommends that Mandala Airlines develop and promulgate an accurate checklist from the approved operations manual instead of the do not use for flight version. So for 4.3, the National Transportation Safety Committee recommends that the Mandala Airlines should review and update the standard operating procedures in accordance with the approved operation manual. So for 4.4, we have the National Transportation Safety Committee recommends that the Mandala Airlines should conduct a functional test of the takeoff warning horn on its Boeing 757 aircraft each day before commencing flight operations. Additionally, the warning horn should be functionally checked once in every 200 flight hours in accordance with FAA AD 8822-09. So next.
Next is 4.5 recommendation to Directorate General Civil Aviation. The National Transportation Safety Committee recommends that Directorate General Civil Aviation should enforce and ensure that the installation and the maintenance of FDR and CVR in accordance with CASR 121.343, 121.359, and Annex 6, Attachment D. So for 4.6, the National Transportation Safety Committee recommends that Directorate General Civil Aviation should assess the Mandala Airlines Operations Manual to ensure the adequacy of the standard operating procedures. So for